Minash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin al-tahirin al-ma'sumin al-mazlumin. Assalamu alaikum viewers. Welcome to our new episode of Quran and Science. As you all know that currently we are discussing the codings which are present in the layout of the Quranic verses and surahs, and the very purpose behind it has also been discussed in our previous episodes, that the grand design of the Quran Majid, because just like its previous books, just like the previous holy celestial scriptures, Quran is also the word of Allah Almighty. But this book is different, special and more detailed. The reason for its being special, the reason for its improved version, because it's an improved version of the previous scriptures. It carries some of it carries some of the same messages, some of the other incidents and commandments which previously occurred in the other books, in the Torah, in the Testaments, in the Psalms, in the Bible, in the Gospels. But it also carries improved and more detailed commandments about the things which will come until the end of time. And if you remember, in our previous episodes we also discussed about the prime numbers, that these prime numbers were used as a method of coding for the Quran Majid, because as you know that for anything, for any detailed script, if it's in print, you need volumes and volumes in print, and of course they take up a huge amount of space and paper and ink and resources, and of course storage space. Now in terms of in terms of modern technology, in the IT age, when everything has been computerized and digitized, and a lot has been converted into the binary codes in the digital storage form, in the computerized digital data, that also needs a certain amount of storage space, because like that system also runs on a pattern of codes, on a pattern of binary codes, on a system of zeros and ones, and a pattern which needs more intrinsic coding for higher and better resolution. And higher and better resolution again needs more storage space for that detailed data in the hard disk and in whatever hardware that stores or carries that information. And of course, all the users of technology, all the users of computer also know that no matter how good the hardware, any of the computer hardware is, it is still prone or subjected to malfunction, damage and disruption. So nothing is foolproof. So Quran Majid, it contains the information from the beginning of time till the end of time. The beginning of time is also an estimated period of time, which the astronomers have calculated and estimated into 4 billion years. Then the end of time is also an estimate. But the word of the Almighty is not estimated. It gives us an authentic and an accurate information, but for various purposes, for example, for the purposes of security, preservation of the text, so that it does not get distorted like the previous scriptures, it does not get disinterpreted into various structures, It would not be changed into according to the means, according to the will and the whims of the clerics of the time. And also it would at the same time carry the exact amount of accurate information with details after details after details, that the same verse, for example, any verse of the Quran, if you pick it up, the more you delve into the exegesis, the more you delve into the meaning, the more you try to reason into the gravity of the text, the gravity of the words, you find more and more meanings, deeper and deeper meanings, broader and broader meanings of one apparent ayah, of one apparent meaning. That is why the Almighty called its Quran like the Quran al-Kareem, and it also called it the Kitab al-Maknoon. Like in one of our previous slides, we had shared with you that it's called just like the pearls are hidden in the clamshell. It's like, for example, like the egg covered in apparently very, very delicate and fragile shell, fragile covering, but within itself it contains life. It carries life. Like Baizil Maknoon in Surah 37 verse 49, and in Surah 52 verse 24 it calls it the pearl which is hidden within the protective shell, that is the clam shell. Again, pearl is, again, it's a life form, it's a parasite, again a life form, but that life form is used as something precious. So it carries some precious life form, it carries some precious valuable thing which is of benefit. Then it's also called like the Kitab al-Maknoon, like it's a book which has within inside a protective shell, that is within a protective shell. So it's a book, but it's covered. So the book apparently doesn't seem to be covered in anything. Like book, for example, we create the casing, the book may have the hardcover. Normally the Quran comes in the hardcover, and we may create or we may like have a box to keep the Quran, or a rihal, or in some parts of like for example in India, Pakistan, ladies and housewives usually they stitch up a book cover for the Quran to keep it from gathering dust and everything, and to keep it safe and clean, and so that the outer covering does not get damaged. But otherwise the book is not covered. So the book being covered in a protective shell, the book that is inside a protective shell, fi Kitab al-Maknoon, and that is Surah number 56 verse 78. The book hidden within a protective case, that is what we have been discussing with you in our continuing episodes, that the protection that the book has been given, or the protective covering that the book has been given, is that of the coding, the numerical value of each letter and each word. Now some and like all those numerical values and like all those codes, and it has been found out that the layout, the pattern is in form of prime number settings, that all the numbers, all the values, all the numerical values given to carried by the verses and the words and the letters, they are prime numbers, because prime numbers themselves are very mysterious, and they are the basic for the detailed calculations. All right. There are in some places some numbers mentioned in the Quran, and for example, like in one of the episodes we also mentioned that Surah Mudassir, Surah number 74, in its 30th ayah, it mentions that over it are 19. Now it has been discussed by many schools of thought and by many scholars, and the discussion has gained this particular verse, has gathered and has been a subject of very detailed discussions and debates and apparent exaggerated researches, it does not coincide with the rest of the description and with the rest of the ayahs before and after that particular ayah, or ayah number 13. For example, ayah number 13, 30th ayah, 30th ayah of Surah Mudassir says, over it are 19. Now, over it are 19 is like, if we, for example, if we go back to the previous verses, over it are 19 is actually the mention of the guardians of hell, the angels of hell, the guardians of hell, which are angels. And for example, I'll read for you the previous few ayahs, that we will soon put them. I'll mention those who doubt on the word of Allah. Surah Mudassir, if you read it, if we read it as a whole surah, and if we follow the discussion on the surah on Shan Nuzul and like the whole topic of argument, the whole topic that is discussed in Surah Mudassir, from the beginning till the end, it discusses the Quraysh, the kuffar, the pagans, who were the masters and who were considered very highly learned and literary people of their time, very highly intellectual people, very highly learned people in their in their fields of learning, in the disciplines of learning, and at their time. When they came across the word of Allah recited by our Prophet Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were mesmerized, because all their learning and all their profound vocabulary skills had never come across the kinds of vocabulary, the kind of word usage, the kind of text that was being recited by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as one of the titles, and like as Quran itself means, that it's the readable text, meaning it's not the imla'i text, it's not the descriptive, it's not the literary text, it's the readable text, because it was revealed directly upon Rasul Akram. Some ayahs came directly, some ayahs were brought down by Gabriel, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam. But it did not come down as tablets, it did not come down as scrolls, it was not written anywhere. And yet it was something, it was a piece of literature which was beyond excellence. So when they tried to confront, and like these were all the people, one of them being Walid bin Mughira, he was a very highly respectable person of his time, and not only he was superior in wealth, in status, not only in wealth and status, and like in terms of his sons and like financial status, he was also one of the very highly learned people of his time. So the challenge was put across Walid bin Mughira. The challenge was put across Walid bin Mughira to try to come up with some verse matching the Quranic text. Of course, it was not in power of any human being, because from that time until now, there are a lot of accusations that the Quran Quran is the word of Prophet Muhammad, and he was beyond it. But like as anybody more and more tries to read through Quran, it's very, very evident that it's not the work of any human mind, any human brain. It is definitely the word of Allah Almighty. So coming down to verse number 30th, after discussing all these all these the tribals and all these Quraysh who were not only doubting the word of Allah but also ridiculing the words and the phrases and trying to break them apart and trying to ridicule all the messages discussed in the book. So that was when this ayah and when the description of hell and heaven came down through the Prophet, through the Prophet's recitations. One of them jokingly said, there are different views, there are different variations, there are different versions of the background of this verse number 30th. One version is that out of their during their ridicule they claimed and they asked that is there anybody guarding the hell, or is there anybody watching over who stays in hell, and what if some people come out of the hell after being thrown, and we are so mighty, such mighty warriors, and we are such huge groups, who's going to throw us into hell and everything. So, and another version is that a group of Jews had come to Rasulullah, and as you must be aware that during that time, during big numbers of various groups of Jews used to come to Rasulullah to test him whereas he is the final prophet or not, because their books contained signs, some very clear signs and some pointers which would verify the genuinity of the last prophet, of the final prophet, because the scholars, the Jewish scholars of that time, they knew the signs of the final prophet, the seal of prophet, in their books. So they used to come with different questions in order to test the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So one such group came upon Rasulullah, and they asked them this question that that your God also talks about the heaven and hell. So has he appointed any guardians on hell? To which Rasulullah replied, after receiving this ayah, the verse 30th, that over it are 19, that there are 19 guardians or angels of hell. Now 19 is a very clear number, and it's a big number. Now the discussions tell us that there are various views about the number 19, that why the number 19 has been picked out. What is the reason for the number 19? Again, number 19 was also the receptor of great ridicule by the Quraysh, by Abu Jahl, by Walid bin Mughira, and by their disciples, by the whole group. When they heard this ayah, they came across that, okay, why 19? Just 19? Does your God only has 19? Or another version was that 19 is not such a big number, this so and so mighty warrior can take care of half of them, and I'll take care of the rest of them. 19, it appears in exegesis that there are various interpretations of the number 19. One is that 19 is like 19 groups of angels, and 19 is also the 19 types of evils. The 19 types of evils, according to which there are 19 grades of hell. And on each grade of hell, on each stage and grade of hell, there is an angel who is appointed to look after or to guard it. And as further ayahs and further exegesis defines it, and some other verses appearing in other surahs elsewhere in the Quran, pointing to the fact that the angels created by Almighty, they have the powers to take up the entire group and put them and keep them in the hellfire. Because, for example, in the mention of the Qawm Ad, the nation of Ad, the nation of Prophet Lut alayhi salam, it was mentioned that there were only 4 or 5 angels who had come down, and they had toppled the entire city upside down. So the angels have been created by the Almighty, have been given certain limited and certain unlimited powers, and their size and their might is known only to the Creator himself. Now, some groups, some researchers, some scholars, they have taken the number 19 very literally, and they have discussed it as the manifest of various things which are based on number 19. Now here, if we look at the verse which comes after this verse, for example, this is the verse number 30, of Surah Mudassar. And if we look at the verse number 31, and we look at verse number 31, the next verse, it is the longest verse in the surah. It says that, I'll only read the translation for the sake of keeping the limitation of time, and that and we have not made the wardens of the fire other than angels, and we have not made their numbers. But for one reason, if we spread out, if we break down the ayahs, I'm doing it in the translation for explanation purposes, that as a trial for those who disbelieve, so those who have been given the book may be certain, so those who believe may increase in faith, so those who have been given the book and the believers may not doubt, and so those in whose hearts is a disease and the unbelievers may say, what does Allah mean by this parable? Thus does Allah make err whom He pleases, and He guides whom He pleases, and none knows the hosts of your Lord but He Himself, and this is not but a reminder to the mortals. Now, the above ayah, the ayah number 31, this is ayah number 31, ayah number 30th of Surah 74, Surah Mudassar. It only says that alayha tis'atan ashr, that over it are 19. Then the following ayah, the following verse, number 31, which is the longest of the Surah Mudassar, it tells of 5 reasons why God Almighty has chosen the number 19 in the Quran as an integrity checksum, and how the new primology system, which is derived from the Quran itself, can increase the faith of the believers when useful hidden knowledge is extracted with God's permission, with Allah's permission, meaning with Allah's guidance, to which Allah wants to guide us, and thus prove it as the word of Allah, and is man's manual for passing the test of this short physical life journey. He may guide those who believe in Him as the sole creator and real-time sustainer of all seen and unseen worlds to the right path, and keep us on it till we meet Him soon, inshallah. Now, the 5 reasons, again, I'll repeat them to you. The first reason being that we have given this number. Like, for example, I'm reading the translation from the verse, that we have not made the wardens of the fire other than the angels, and we have not made their number, but as a trial for those who disbelieve. Meaning, the trial for those who disbelieve was that because they are always going to argue. 19 was just a number. It could also be a random number. It could also be a meaningful number. If there had been any other number except 19, they would always have come up with an argument, with a question, with a ridicule, that why this number? What's the reason for this parable? What is the reason for this digit? So they would always have something ridiculous to say about it. So this is to try those who disbelieve. So those who have been given the book may be certain. How would they be certain? Because Allah always has an answer for everything, for every ridicule, for every question, no matter how insensible, how no matter how nonsensical the question may be, but Allah, the creator and the knower of all things, always has an answer to satisfy anybody's curiosity, only if the curiosity is meant for healthy and positive purposes. Then number 3, so those who believe may increase in faith, that their faith would increase, their trust in Allah would increase. So those who have been given the book and the believers may not doubt, and so those in whose heart is a disease and the disbelievers may say, what Allah means by this parable. Now, like I said a short while ago, that some scholars, in trying to interpret the various verses and the various the mathematical and the scientific aspects discussed in the Quran, they have taken some things very literally and taken mentions of certain numbers and digits, for example, like this number 19, as a parable on which they have tried to base the entire mastery of this universe, the entire layout of this universe, the entire building of this universe, the entire creation of this universe, either by making connections with the number 19 or by making connections with the divisibles or the multiples of 19. Now, as far as coding is concerned, coding does not mean that it always should be present in this form, that you will come up with some kind of a physical interpretation, but the coding of the book, like this, the Almighty said, that it's a book hidden or protected within protective covers, meaning the pattern or the occurrence of certain words, the arrangement of certain words within the verses, and the arrangement of some verses within the surahs and within the Quran, their occurrence, their numerical value, and the number of letters and number of words in a verse or in a surah, they are not random. They have been given a very unique schematic design, a very unique schematic representation, a pattern which is not random and which cannot be coincidental, which has been done very meticulously, very purposefully, so that if one tries to take out even one letter or tries to take out even one word or half a part of the surah, the whole text will be affected, would be kind of taken apart, would be kind of meaningless. Because when the Quran Majid was revealed, it was revealed on Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether through Jibreel alayhi salam or directly. But either way, Rasul Akram was the only one who heard it, who received it, and then he read it out to those who were present, to the ashab. And there were many ashab, some on regular basis, some on temporary basis, who would commit it to the memory, who would commit the verses, the ayahs and the surahs to memory. And those who knew how to write, they would write it down as in order to keep a record of whatever has been revealed so far on various mediums, such as like wooden tablets, on hides, on skins, on certain the shoulder blade bone. And the script of that time also was not the script which is present today. The script had many flaws at that time. The Kufic script or the other scripts which were prevalent at that time, they did not have the dots, for example. Like for example, the Arabic today, the arrangement of the dots with some letters, for example, the dots of ta, the dots of tha, and the dots of and many kinds of dots were not present. Because they had their own script, and only those who knew how to read and write and who knew the language, the spoken language, could only understand it. That was why much later, many years later, when the Quran needed to be spread out into far and wide areas after the expansion of the Islamic Empire, the need was felt to write it down in a more easily readable text. So the purpose of coding, purpose of putting some primary primology value to the letters and the words and the verses in the Quran is to make the arrangement of the words and the verses in a way which is not able to be disrupted, interfered, misinterpreted, miswritten, to preserve the word of the Almighty. Because the Almighty has taken the charge, He has taken the duty of preserving the Quranic text, the word of Allah, the final word of God, until the end of times, until the Qiyamah, when the Quran will appear as a witness on the people who referred to it. Now with this note, we take a leave for today, and we'll continue our discussion in our next program, inshallah ta'ala, with more details about this beautiful primology value layout in many verses and surahs, and which increase and enhance the beauty that is felt when we recite the Quran. So take care of yourselves and keep us in your prayers. Wa akhiru dawana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.